Welcome back, crew. And for those who celebrate, I hope you all had an amazing Christmas. But today, we're going to be looking at 2025. For those who don't know, 2025 is going to be a great and crazy year for the tabletop RPG space. There are so many new games coming out with either their first edition, enhancements to existing editions, or even brand new editions for kind of long-standing games with the industry. And one of the cool things with this too, and I usually hate to use this term, but a lot of them, if they're not D&D killers, can at least be D&D competitors, because so many of the new games coming out are coming from creators who have a pretty big and kind of a loyal and vocal following. So even if they don't kill D&D, I'm hoping what they'll do is they'll bring kind of shine a spotlight to the tabletop space outside of D&D 5e. And I think this 2025 is going to be the year to do that with how much cool stuff is on the horizon. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through both my honorable mentions as well as my top five games that I'm anticipating coming out for 2025. And kind of what we're looking at for these, we're going to go over kind of when they release, kind of why I'm excited for them, maybe a little bit on who's backing them as well, just to kind of get the full picture, and then just kind of when they're coming out as well too. Because this is, I said, this is gonna be a crazy year. This is gonna be a year for someone like me. It's gonna be hard to cover because so many of them are coming out this fall to kind of be ready for Gen Con. I think like three. Of like the eight of them I've got jotted down are coming out either in fall or directly in August. So it's one of those ones that's gonna be hard for the wallet for some, hard to cover for others, but it should be a great year. Before we dive into our top five, there are a couple I want to give us a shout out, some honorable mentions too. The first one is 13th H2E by Pelgrim Press is coming out with its second edition. It's a big shout out to them. It's going to be launching August 2025. I loved the 13th Age system. I'm really excited to see what tweaks they put into kind of the play style for it. I'm hoping they kind of sand the edges and some of the mechanics that were a little bit rougher, just to make them kind of flow a little bit smoother in the play style. But overall, very excited. It's really one of the kind of a really one of the best mixes I've seen so far. In kind of tactical and narrative play. You still get the advancement from kind of a more tactical kind of Pathfinder 5e style system, but it's kind of more narrative. It's not meant to be played in a grid, so you still kind of get that more narrative feel from like a Blades in the Dark style system. It's kind of that middle balanced ground, as I like to call it. So I'm hoping more games are coming into that space, and really excited to see what 2E does with kind of a new edition. Um, After that, another big one that's coming out with the second edition, another one we've covered on the channel. Alien is coming out with 2E as well by Free League Games. Excited for this one. I love the Alien system. I'm actually going to be playing in a one shot in the next few weeks as well. So I'm excited to see what they do there. I love the Year Zero system by Free League. I'm hoping, and my hope is they bring some of the cool tweaks they did in Walking Dead and kind of bring those into the Alien system and kind of customize them for the sci horror and kind of the more advanced combat that Alien has, and kind of see how that plays out. So definitely excited to see that. And the reason 13th Age and Alien 2E were kind of on the uh, this side of the honorable mentions is because I played both of those, and from what I've read, they're going to be making some good tweaks, but nothing too crazy with either one of these systems, and neither one of them were broken and needed major tweaks. So I'm definitely excited. Definitely going to be covering some of the channels. But they just didn't hit my top five on that side. Another big one, though, this one's a new one. This one was like, I'll probably put this one at six out of the top five. Is Final Fantasy 14 is coming out with its own tabletop RPG. It's going to be launching February 2025. This will definitely be one of the games of the month once I get my hardcover copy of the book. From what I've read, they're doing some really cool stuff with like kind of AoE, as well as kind of like they bring in some like the AoE effects from the game where you'll have to light up, highlight kind of tiles where like a fireball effect may be going off the next turn, and people have chances to either get their damage in and stay put or move, which are always fun. I like things like that. I'm kind of excited to see what they'll do. I didn't really play much of the MMO 14, but I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, so very curious to see what they do with this edition. And then finally, for the honorable mentions, Monty Python's Curricular Medieval Reenactment Program. It's a very long name, but very fitting for the Monty Python mythos. Super excited for that. I think that one's launching in February as well. That is definitely going to be one of our games of the month too. I think in February as well. So stay tuned for that. It seems like a very fun RPG. One of the cool things I noticed in the Kickstarter was that they have a rule set for like throwing a mutiny as a players and switching GMs, which usually is like a horror story for other RPGs, but for one with the fun and goofy mindset of Monty Python, I think will be a blast. Hoping that we get to do a mutiny too when we run our game as well. So definitely excited for that one. But let's kind of switch gears. Let's get into our top five. So this one's number five. It kind of, and just to reframe too, the way I structured this is kind of what I'm most interested in kind of seeing how the game comes out, as well as what gaps in the games I currently have that the playstyle may fit. So the one that's kind of at the low end of the list, Cosmere. Very excited for it. As I said, I've been reading the Cosmere books. They're very good. I love the world and the building that goes into it. I love kind of like how well the system has been kind of adapted. This system's been built to kind of fit Brian Sanderson's world. I think this will be a very fun one, and it kind of fits a good niche too, where it's a D20 system, and it plays similarly enough to kind of like a 5e or Pathfinder even, that you'll kind of it'll be easy to pick up for people coming from 5e. Uh, but they didn't make it a 5e clone, which I was very impressed of them for doing so because it was Brandon Sanderson's work being such a big name. It's easy cash grab to go and just make it just a 5e clone with some bits and differences. But they went through and they definitely made the system their own. It's D20, but it doesn't really share too much blood with 5e. They've got different initiative mechanics. They've got different. They've got almost like kind of a classless system where you're able to go through and pick different archetypes, to choose which abilities from those archetypes you like, which I love when systems do things like that. There's a little bit more tactical complexity that goes into the system. It kind of feels a little bit like Pathfinder 2e, a little bit on kind of the different options that you have available to you in combat beyond just hitting something or casting magic upon it up. Just a lot of cool stuff you can do with this system. And the reason I'll say it is the number five because I'm still getting into the Brandon Sanderson world. I think as soon as I finish the series, it may even go up a few notches on there. The playstyle kind of feels very similar to kind of like a Pathfinder 2e, 5e hybrid a little bit too. There's a lot more tactical complexity than 5e, but still not as kind of in depth as Pathfinder 2e, and it kind of has that same D20 format. Uh, Overall, it's just one of those ones. One I don't see unless I get super sucked into the Brandon Sanderson world of replacing one of my current go-to systems, but it's one that I'm really excited to have out there, especially with it being the biggest Kickstarter ever. I think this could be really one of the ones, especially with some of the cool extra features they have compared to typical 5e, that could be a major competitor with D&D 5e or 2024, whatever we're calling it. So, moving from there, next big one, and I should say too, for all of these, all my top five, I've either kickstarted them or pre-ordered them, depending on what they had available. So definitely looking forward to getting my copy for all of these. But this next one, I'm a huge Kevin Crawford fan. I love his World Without Numbers series. Just Without Number kickstarted last month or a couple months ago, and basically it's going to be a zombie horror style game utilizing the OSR system, kind of the Worlds Without Number kind of play style. And I'm really excited to see what he brings. Kevin Crawford, even if you don't want to use the OSR game style that he provides, he gives so much like GM resources. I feel like Kevin Crawford is the GM creator. I feel like. Every book I've seen from him, from like Worlds Without Number, Stars Without Number, Godbound, always has such cool game master resources that you could just take and throw into another system, especially with it being OSR. It's so easy, even for some of the mechanics he has in there, to drag and drop it into the system of your choice without having to homebrew too much. I'm really excited to see what he does on the horror side. I've only played one other zombie horror game, Walking Dead. So it'd be kind of cool to see that with the OSR feel. I'm really hoping he makes zombies feel super lethal in this as well. And I can't wait to see what he does when it gets released. And also, this one will be coming out in November of 2025. So stay tuned for that one. So this will be a little bit after Gen Con. Give me a breather, thankfully, because there's a lot coming out of the Gen Con period. And I think I forgot to mention it for Cosmere. Cosmere is coming out September 2025. And I would be very surprised if they don't have copies at Gen Con as well. So moving on from there, the next big one. the MCDM RPG, Draw Steel, I should say. And this was the top three was one that I really agonized over because these three I'm super excited for. I'm ready to kind of play all of them. We'll probably do a mini campaign with all three of these. This is really coming down to kind of I think what's missing in my gaming, kind of my core gaming play styles. But MCDM, the Draw Steel RPG, seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. I've played I think two different versions of their playtest. A new one just dropped recently. Haven't had a chance to check it out yet. But it's a great game. It's a great tactical RPG. There's a lot of cool options the players can do. Even at level one, you kind of feel like a fully fleshed out hero, and you kind of continue. And I can't wait to see what the level progression gets from there because I feel like you can only go up from there. You've got so many cool resources. You feel it really hits that tactical cinematic fantasy vibe they're going for and I'm really looking forward to see what it looks like when it's fully fleshed out. Raw Steel is another August 2025. This is going to be a crazy one. They're launching with Gen Con, I imagine. And this is one I'm really looking forward to. Pre ordered it, and I want to see kind of what the progression looks like levels 1 through 10. Uh, and then kind of this is another good tactical game that you can have in your repertoire. This is definitely one you need a battle map for. But it's one they've really put a lot of care into. And it's been amazing getting to watch or reading the Patreon as they go through the journey, as they reiterate on mechanics. It's been fun watching their creative process. So super excited for this one. Next big one is one I think, and also too with MCDM as well. Matt Colville backing and Matt Colville teaching so many people how to play RPGs. I think this would be another one that's going to be a major 5e competitor, if not killer, maybe. But another one that kind of fits that space too, Daggerheart. So this is going to be backed by the Critical Role crew. So this is their, I think Critical Role is probably it's the biggest D&D actual play, and they're going to their own homebrew system or their own custom systems. It's the official system, I should say. I think will be one that could definitely hurt D&D 2044 and shine a light on a lot of new systems because they're bringing in some cool elements with this system that I think it can give people haven't learned a new system outside of 5e, but once they've learned Daggerheart, maybe go and see kind of what else is out there in this space. Because Daggerheart's really kind of fitting into this balanced play style. It feels like it's one that has a lot of elements from narrative systems like Blades in the Dark, powered by the apocalypse, but it still has some of the fantasy crunch that you'd like to see with a kind of a good fantasy system. But it's one that you don't need a grid to play. You could definitely theater of mind it. I played it twice at Gen Con, and it's just been one that's a lot of fun. It's easy to pick up the mechanics for. The hope and fear dice are really interesting. This is one of and I kind of debated between where I wanted to put Raw Steel and Daggerheart on this one. Because with Daggerheart, I think it's one of the ones that'll fit a niche I still haven't fully found. 13th Age so far has been my balanced game where it kind of fits that narrative and kind of tactical itch. Uh, I think this could be one of the ones I've had a blast with it at Gen Con that could be kind of take over that niche. Depending on how 2E for 13th Age and how Daggerheart come out, it could really be a toss up for them. MCDM RPG got a little bit lower because Pathfinder 2E right now is really satisfying my tactical itch. So I'm kind of curious to see whether the full system comes out for the MCDM or for Draw Steel. I should keep reminding myself to say to see how that will play into it. Overall, I'm super excited for these two. Between Matt Colville teaching half the world how to GM, myself included, and Matt Mercer teaching and kind of showing kind of what you can do with an actual play, making an actual play legit entertainment with one of the biggest shows like on streaming platforms across the board. I think these two could really shine a really huge light on the tabletop RPG hobby. It gets the players like outside of just the 5e bubble. So excited for both of these. Nice thing with the Daggerheart RPG, they're not going out at Gen Con. They're going out spring 2025. They don't have a date on that one yet, but I'm hoping they stick to that because I'd love to have some space to review this one outside of the Gen Con rush. So stay tuned on that side. And they didn't do a Kickstarter; they have a pre-order. And I'm actually good point too. I'll put all like the pre-orders or Kickstarters for all these the top five in the comments too. That way, if you want to go and kind of order one of these, you'll have the option to do so. But finally, we're going to go into the one that is going to be kind of my big one for 2025. And this is the Starfinder 2E new edition that'll be coming out. They haven't given a firm date. They said by the end of the year. I'm expecting them to go at Gen Con. The Paizo usually likes to coordinate around Gen Con for their big releases. So looking forward to see what they do there. But the reason I chose this one as my top one, I love the Pathfinder 2E system and or ISO 2Es and Starfinder. We'll be utilizing a lot of the same rules and bones as Pathfinder 2E with kind of how the mechanics flow. But I need a good, like a good level 1 through 20 crunchy sci-fi system. I've just completed, or I'm going to be completing my Star Wars campaign. I'd love a new system that could really kind of just fill that itch. And Starfinder 2E from the playtest seems like it'll be able to do so. So excited for them to eventually introduce like ship-based combat. It has some more sci-fi feel to it. But this is one that I could really see being one of my mainstays with how much I love the Pathfinder 2E system and kind of how much I love sci-fi games, and currently don't really have a good sci-fi game home outside of kind of the Scum and Villainy, which is kind of more on the narrative side. I'd love a good crunchy sci-fi game that could just be in my repertoire that's not OSR like World Star Wars Without Number. But overall, excited for all of these top five. I think all of them will probably get definitely be games of the month for sure once they release and I get my hardcover. And many of them too may even get a little mini campaign just to really show off what the system can do. Because so this is going to be a huge year for tabletop RPGs, and I think there should be a lot of love going around for different play styles. It's a lot of There'll be a lot of opportunity for people to kind of step outside of the bubble of what traditional systems they play. But overall, this was a really small peek at what's coming out in 2025. As I said, there's a lot of games I did not mention. Shout out in the comments some that you're excited for, or even for the ones I named. There's some reasons why you guys are excited for them as well. The hard part is going to be August 2025. We have to decide what we want to cover first, but that's a problem for another day. But thanks for hanging out, guys. Like, subscribe. Make sure to stay up to date with our game of the month content. Fates our January or December game of the month. So stay tuned for our character build and make sure to hang out with us Monday, December 30th for our live actual play of the system and a chance to win a free PDF copy of the core rulebook. But thanks for hanging out and until next time.